Let's get started. This is our weekend walkabout for April 4th, and our topic today is tools. Choosing tools, using tools, caring for tools. We call it choices, use, and care. And this is all about saving time, energy, muscle strain, definitely, and making it easier on your plants, less stress, by using the right tools. This is copyrighted material. I know that almost everyone listening here today is a friend. We've met you personally, but we do put a replay of this presentation onto our YouTube channel, Janet at Garden A to Z, and anybody can look at it, and we know that it can be useful. We mean it for your personal use. We put in so much time, so much energy, and so much money into doing these things that we'd like to know if someone is using them for a master gardener meeting or a community tree planting meeting, yes, or some of those things.
Just ask us.
Yeah, just contact us. Those of you who don't know us, that's Stephen us on the left and Janet on the right. We what? That's not right?
No, I know.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying we're interchangeable
we're professional gardeners by trade, but we're also, my background is in education. Steve's background is in photography. And so Steve has always got a camera. I usually have a camera, small camera tucked in my pocket. Steve does most of the photographs that we're using in our articles and here on the website and on webinars. I do most of the words when we write things down, but we both do both. We're known in our neighborhood as the poison ivy king and queen. Those are poison ivy leaves chopped in on our head. Because we're in charge of poison ivy removal in our neighborhood. But we do sometimes clean up and go out, not very often. Most of the time we look like what we should do working in the garden. And we started Garden A to Z on the web, on the internet, because we've been writing for well over 30 years. We've written a lot of things that some of them are based on questions that came in to our column in the Detroit News and Free Press, about 11,000 questions in 13 years. And they taught us so much looking into all of these different things, seeing the same situation or what seemed to be the same situation going differently in different places, that we thought we need to write these things down and leave them for other people someplace so that we can all get a kind of step ahead. We have written some of our own books, Designing Your Gardens and Landscapes. Caring for Perennials, Steve and I did together. And we both wrote for 10 years for the Michigan Gardener. We're not doing that now because we're devoting our time to our website, but it's an excellent magazine. And some of you know that we published magazines of our own. Hang on to these. I think they've become collector's editions, but if we look familiar, it's because you've seen us in those before, if you haven't met us before. But that's not what we want to talk about today. We want to talk about tools and how gardeners can teach each other tools. You're looking at a tool cleaning party, and Steve in charge of showing people how to get tools into good shape, and that's what we're doing there. I'd like to encourage you to please, if you have questions, you can send them. Can you go back for a second, Steve?
Yeah.
You can send them to us by email, and that's very easy to do off of our website or off of any of the newsletters that we send you. But also, we do have the forum on the Garden A to Z, and as often as we can, we take the questions that come directly to us and we post them on the forum where other people are posting questions, so more people can see the question and answer and can chime in, add their thoughts, add their pictures. You do have to become a member to post on the forum, but it's easy to do. There's no charge to do it. We just have to ask you to be a member before you can type on there, or else we get computer bots and hackers showing up.
Yep.
Okay, enough of that. You want to talk about tools. Now, you might think, oh man, these people know tools. They use tools all the time. We've heard from a number of people saying, oh, I'm so bad to my tools. I'm really glad you're going to talk about this. And you probably think that we do this, that we organize our tools and we've got them all just like so. But I want you to know that it doesn't really work that way. That's somebody else's garage. This is ours on a day when Stephen spent 2.5 days or reorganizing the bins and setting them up. They don't look like that today. And we're not going to show you quite what they look like today. We dragged all the tools out.
Not all.
Well, yeah, not all. A lot of the tools. You know, heavens no, we don't want to show you all the tools.
These are all the tools we used this year in this garden.
Yeah.
Are just here, not anybody else's.
Yeah, so far.
We're not
we
big
have
power tools.
Right. We have some power tools. Power meaning engines or being big kinds of things. We'll introduce you to the ball cart there later. But mostly we use manual tools. I don't like the noise, and on my hands don't like the vibration. A lot of you know that I've got a tremor in one hand, and it's worse if the machine is vibrating.
It does affect our hands a
But
lot.
there are other reasons we don't like power tools, and we'll get into some of those later. So mostly we're using manual tools, old-fashioned. If we want to talk about power tools, and you can certainly put that into the feedback form that we're sending you right after you get done today, then we do have friends that use power tools. Our friend Deb Hall, who may or may not be here today. I didn't see all the names of people coming in. Deb Hall has an incredible arsenal of power tools and is wonderful at using them. So we could bring in someone as a guest and we could talk later about that. You had the opportunity, if you wanted to, and you'll have the opportunity again when we send you the feedback form, to download the handout for today, which is 5 pages, I think, of outline like you see here. Very simple outline where you can take notes, and 2 pages that are more dense that capture what we think a lot of people are here for, which is about sharpening pruners, that will recap for you what you're going to see on the screen. We're going to start with everyday tools, what we call the standard kit. We started calling it the standard kit when we said one day, where the heck is my, and I said, that's it. We are going to put the tools that I must have with me every day in one place, and anybody who takes those tools is going to get, yes, they're going to get shot. We call it the standard kit. So we're going to take you through the standard kit first, which means that these are the tools that, given these things, and generally for me it means I can fit them all in one bucket, then I can do anything I might come up against on an average day out in the garden. First one being a spade. Spades are the ones that don't look like the spade on the deck of cards. They're rectangular blades if it's a spade. A shovel on the right there, and this is a good example of, no, we don't have perfect, wonderful tools. A shovel is the one that looks like a spade. Don't ask why that happens, but that's the way that it happens. Spades are rectangular. We think that every gardener needs to have a spade and use it because it's a very versatile tool. One of the big bits of versatility is that with a spade, you can do edging as well as digging, and you can cut through roots easier.
They don't slide off. That pointed will slide off the root or stone.
Yep. The whole purpose of the point on the shovel is to make it slide past obstacles and let you pick up soil more easily. But if it keeps sliding past the root, whether that's a root of a peony or it's a root of a tree that you're trying to cut through, it's a lot more difficult to do. So a spade is an important thing to have. Also important on a spade, or a shovel for that matter, is a tread. The small spade on the left does not have a tread. A tread is that wider shoulder up on the blade that gives your foot a place to push.
And that's where your foot hits. If you're edging and your foot hits, that blade is maybe 10 to 12 inches wide, and you're edging 10 feet, how many times is your foot hitting on that? And if you don't have that landing spot, it will cut your boots and hurt your foot.
Yeah, and I hope you're wearing boots.
Wear boots.
Later.
Wear boots.
And the tread needs to be big enough to support your foot when you're kicking a spade, but small enough to not add a lot to the weight, because weight is an important issue for most gardeners. So you can edge and not have to carry an edger, is the point with having a spade rather than a shovel. I can edge and dig and cut.
And it's a lot more efficient.
Yeah. So there's your tread that you're looking at. And other differences in spades. This is my spade on top, right, Steve? I think
that's yours.
Yeah. This is the blade of my spade. It is not cupped. It's cupped a little bit.
No, this is my, this one's mine.
This is Steve's spade. It's cupped a little bit, but not as much as a shovel is. A spade is not as good at holding a bunch of soil when you're digging, which is why you can dig a better hole. If you're just digging a deep hole, you're going to be able to scoop the soil out better with a shovel.
Now that's Janet's on the bottom, and on the top is a straight blade.
So you're looking at my spade. One of the reasons that I like it is that it is a rectangular blade, but it has more of a cup So it's a good digger. It's something you look for when you pick your spade, is to make sure that it can do all the things you want it to do. I want to be able to edge with it. I want to be able to dig with it well.
And Janet's such a good edger that it doesn't have to be a straight blade for her to make a straight edge.
Edged a lot.
And this is the difference between my shovel and Janet's. Mine has just a little bit of a hook on the edge to hold a little bit more soil than the flat blade.
We'll take you through.
Quite different.
We'll take you through the sources of these tools at the end of the presentation today. Our spades are Bulldog spades from Clarington Forge. They're wonderful tools. They're lifetime tools, and they are good things to have. But they are different. They do have a border fork, and they do have a digging fork, a digging spade, and a border spade. Mine is a digging spade.
And they come in, they give you different length handles too.
Yeah, Steve's handle is longer than mine is. So the second part of your everyday kit, your standard kit, is a digging fork. And I tell people that one of our very first clients, when we drew a design for him and he was very excited and said we could plant it for him, was home when we got there, and I thought he was going to be at work. I said, I thought you were going to be at work, David. He says, well, I just thought I'd come and watch what you were doing. Once we started working, he got his suit coat and his car keys, and he said, I think I'm going to go to work. I said, well, why? He said, I thought when you said you were going to dig the garden with forks, he wanted to see forks as in the thing you hold in your hand to eat dinner. But this is these are digging forks of various sizes, various width tines. Various
strength of tine.
Right. My fork is on the far left.
And the one I ended up with is on the far right.
The one on the far left is called a digging fork, a potato fork, or a spading fork. It has a broad, flat tine on the top and is triangular underneath. I think we've got a picture of that. Some forks have a bigger head than others.
It's bigger.
And here's what I mean by triangular underneath. My fork is on top. The blade on the underside of each tine is triangular in cross section. That gives more strength to the tine and yet makes it penetrate soil easier. Whereas that's yours on the
bottom.
Yeah, so Steve's is a more straight
blade.
Mine
is considered more of a garden fork.
Right.
And
so if you're looking for the good fork that I really like, you're looking for a spading fork or a potato fork. And when you find where they are, let us know.
They are better. They're stronger tines. There's a lot of times you're really reefing on that sometimes, and that tine can handle it better.
Take a picture when you visit the replay. Do a screenshot of my fork with the tines like that, and send it to Clarington Forge and say, you used to make these, make them again.
We got our original ones when we first started gardening from Smith and Hawkins.
But Smith and Hawkins was buying them from
Clarington
Forge.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. So forks.
So several forks is better to have. Smaller forks for working in tight places, loosening soil, weeding. You put a fork in, put your foot on it and sit the fork in deep, and then lean back so that the tines loosen the ground, and you can take out deep-rooted things like dandelions. You can find the roots of thistles better than with that little bitty thing.
You could also use them to divide plants by putting them back to back and spreading them apart.
Right, with the plant out of the ground. You have to have it out of the ground.
Not in the ground.
And on a soft surface. You push one fork through the middle of it. You only have to hit it with your boot a couple of times. Then you put the other fork in next to it and then push them apart, and it just comes apart like butter.
Daylilies especially good.
Daylilies, hostas, Siberian iris, ornamental grasses. Yeah.
One thing about forks, they do find water lines. If you have an irrigation system, it's a good idea to carry irrigation repair kit. You give me a fork in a garden and it's like a divining rod. I'm going to find it. I did one section of 37 feet of 13 holes where
13 holes. He put 13 holes in the line.
Well, I was told there was no line there, but you could still, now that was way back. Now I could actually feel that I'm going into a.
But there is a reason. It isn't a divining rod.
No.
Where they trench in an irrigation line, they have sliced the soil and it does become softer there.
Yeah.
If your fork's going to go in deep, it's going to go in
right
deep
there.
over an irrigation line.
Yeah.
Trowel is another thing that goes in our standard kit. A trowel, of course, is not something that you're going to use to try to attack quack rat, but it gives you an idea of the size. I like a larger trowel. And I have my favorite trowel of all time has disappeared. It has a green handle, all green handle. Looks in between size between those two green handles. If I left it at somebody's house and they've got an extra one, let me know, because you get a trowel, it's very personal. It fits in your hand just so.
And there's a lot of trowels out there.
Right. We'll talk about some of the ifs and ands and buts, and you can see how our stuff gets dirty too, especially in the spring when we're working in the mud. A weeder is the next piece of our, and weeders are very personal. Some people use little picks, hoes, Japanese little machetes, claws, whatever works.
Weapons of destruction.
Right.
If we ever got in a battle, I mean, these look like something Vikings grab.
Yeah, you know what? How come they haven't done a movie like that? Where
With
the
the
gardener
gardeners?
goes out into the garage and beats everybody up. Jackie Chan, take note. Okay. So our neighbor, Phyllis, always weeded with a screwdriver. She picked it up one day. It worked well for her, and that was her favorite weeding tool. There is no question that you don't argue with somebody. That's their tool. It works for them.
If it works, it's yours. You know.
Yeah. Steve really liked the dandelion fork at our old house, the dandelion or asparagus fork on the bottom there, a little padded handle.
Not in the lawn, in the patio, in the deck, in
Get
our
between the
ledge
stepping
rock
stones, yeah.
Patio.
My favorite weeder is the middle one here. These are all Dutch hand hoes made by different companies.
And you notice the handles all have different way they're gripped.
Right, and we'll come back to that later. But my favorite one is in the middle. It was made.
Whoops, sorry.
It was made and offered by Smith and Hawken. Smith and Hawken stopped doing tools. Boo, Smith and Hawken, and started doing high-end pottery and stuff like that.
They made money.
Yeah, they do that.
I guess.
But other companies picked it up and said, oh, good, these sold well. I'll try to make them. But they're not the same. They're not quite made the same way. So I treasure mine. And I've given a lot of them over the years to people who said, oh, that's a cool tool. If you ever stop gardening, I'll take it back. They last forever. Go ahead, Steve.
I did.
Oh, well, then don't press it again.
I'm
It'll
trying not
change.
to.
We're waiting.
Unless I missed it. Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh.
Our friend Burdett's favorite tool is a little fork. She gets, when it's gone, she's all over the place looking for it. And she uses it the same way that we use a big fork. She puts it into the ground where she's working on a weed. Go ahead. She inserts the fork and bounces it, pushes down on the handle and loosens the soil while she tugs on the plant, and you end up threading the plant right out through what you're doing. And we do that with a bigger fork. She just loves it. She says it's so great how it works like that. So her little fork is her weeding tool. Hand pruners are important to have for everything, for perennials, for shrubs and trees. And this is another thing where everybody's got their own.
And there are so many different ones out there, from $70 to $80 to, I saw a pair at a dollar store, you know.
Yeah.
So you just
you tend to get what you pay for. Mine are on the right there. The Fiskars are the ones I really like to use. Yeah. Oh, sorry, my pointer's just been sitting in the middle of the screen. I do apologize for that. These are the pair that I've been using, although we're looking to switch now because this company, boo, Fiskars, what are you doing? Seems to have outsourced their production. And like everybody that does this, they look to making money, I think, and they've cut some corners so that they're not quite the same as they were 10 years ago. So it's what suits you best. Try other people's. Go and do things with other gardeners so that you can use each other's tools. Are you going back and forth for a reason? Oh, it wasn't you? Make sure that your pruners fit your hand. One of the reasons that I like the Fiskars, and this is the Fiskars with the rotating handle, it's called the Power Gear. As you close that, the handle rolls, and that spreads the pressure out on your fingers so you have less repetitive motion damage to your hand from opening and closing that pruner 100 times a day. But also, this is at full open. This is at full open. This one is going to sit in my hand without my fingers having to be constantly tensed to hold it.
Jen and I have small hands.
Yeah, both
Where
about the
our
same.
hands are about the same size, and when you stretch that hand out, it can hurt
And
over
most
time.
pruners are still being made for a big man's hand.
Yes.
So if your pruners don't fit your hand, find somebody bigger than you to give them to, and go look for some that are smaller. Go ahead, Steve.
I did. Okay.
Okay, so different kinds of hand pruners, and not makes, not manufacturers, but different types, different models are bypass. What?
I am so
that might
sorry.
be, that might be me tapping on the mouse. Okay.
Okay, bypass.
Bypass are like scissors. One blade passes by the other one. That's a bypass pruner. Those are the ones that you really want to have for the most part. So my Fiskars are bypass. The blade passes by the other one like a scissors. This is an Anvil Pruner. There is one blade, and it cuts down against an anvil, down against a flat surface. The difference is that an anvil is going to crush, the side that the anvil is on is going to end up crushed. An Anvil Pruner is much better for destruction work when you're cutting up branches that are
dead wood,
because you don't want to leave this kind of damage at the end of a branch. So there on the side A is where the blade
nice
was.
clean cut.
On the B is where the anvil side was, and it's crushed the cambium. The plant's going to have to fix that wood and maybe die back a little further than you intended before it sprouts back out again. We're not looking at that stuff now.
Whoops, I'm sorry.
It's okay. You go to the next one.
Okay.
Another type of pruner is a ratchet pruner. We used to have a pair of ratchet pruners, but we can't find them right now. So one of our sources that we'll tell you about is A.M. Leonard. This is one of the ratchet pruners they have. They work the same way as, was that called? The lock? There's a type of vice grips. Vice grips work the same way, where you tighten it and it keeps, you close your hand a little bit and it keeps tightening a little more each time you put some pressure on it. So it can help if you don't have enough hand strength to do what you want to do. Can get you into trouble too, doing too much. Power gear is this kind of lopper has a gear so that you're putting more leverage than you would with that length handle because it's a geared one. And that's another thing like a ratchet that gets you more leverage. Okay, so now we're into questions. So let's see if you've got questions, whether you want to raise your hand or whether you want to type them in. Let's see.
You could take Fiskar's tools to Home Depot to exchange
When yours
breaks wear out for free. I did it and it worked.
Yes, Fiskars does give a lifetime guarantee. I do tell people to watch out for lifetime guarantees. Radius Tools has the same thing. But if the tool keeps breaking, is that really what you want to use? So,
yeah.
Other questions? Does anyone use a Sawzall for cutting down Monster Miscanthus? There are people, I think, that use a Sawzall or a fixed blade brush trimmer. Yep, I use a cord and hand trimmers.
Yeah, and earlier Barbara asked a question about do we sharpen the regular shovel and the spade. We sharpen both.
Yep, all cutting edges.
We'll get into sharpening.
Just coming to that right now.
Yeah.
Any other questions here?
So you used the spade to edge last week? Yes.
What about mail order companies? Garrett Wade. We have not ordered from Garrett Wade, and that's not neither a condemnation nor an approval of them versus anybody else. At the end of the handout and the end of the presentation, we'll look at the ones A.M. Leonard that we have there, the Fiskars site, the True Value Hardwares, I think we missed Gempler's, but mail order companies are good. We like to hold the tool in our hand before we decide to buy it. So we will order by mail a tool that we know we want to use.
Yes.
Or we'll pick up a tool at, say, a trade show to decide, is this got the weight and the balance that we want? But we very rarely buy a tool by mail order unless we've got a very strong recommendation from somebody or we've held it ourselves.
We use it ourselves. It is important to feel how a tool feels to you.
I didn't finish all my pruning yet. May I still prune, privet, and barberry? Asked Catherine. Yes, you can still prune them. We quite often prune everything in our own yard late late with question mark, with quotation marks.
Oh.
Go ahead.
There's something about somebody.
We have,
Check the cameras.
okay, then you go with questions, please.
Okay. He used a sawzall for bigger branches and loved it. Are you cutting? Is it cutting the sawzall? The way it vibrates, is it cutting it smooth enough? That would be my concern.
I do know a lot of people who use a sawzall, yeah, as if they are, as if it is a regular saw. And if you're careful, you can do that. But the sawzall has the same problem as chainsaws, in that one slip and you end up damaging wood that you're leaving on the plant. So be careful with a sawzall, all power tools.
What boots do we like? Red Wing.
We've worn Red Wing boots for well over 40 years now. And I think they're still
I've
the
had
best.
5 pair.
Yeah, they're still the best boot out there. And I started wearing them because back when we started, there weren't ladies' size boots. But Red Wing had some.
Bud break.
Bud break. When is bud break? Is that when it blooms? No. Bud break is when those tightly closed growth buds on a plant pop open their caps and begin to spread out. That's bud break. Other questions? Because we're going to go into sharpening now, I believe. Okay, Steve, you go.
Okay.
It's all right. Thank you all. So now we're going to go with cleaning and sharpening, because we know a lot of people are here to see this done too, hand pruners, so that's what we're going to work on. If we sharpen spades, we did say that we do sharpen spades, and we'll show you sharpening a spade later, but we're going to show you the process of sharpening first, because it's simplest on hand pruners. Most people are going to do it on hand pruners, and we'll show you how it applies to spades and shovels and other things later on. What you need some oil. We use WD-40. There are some other types of oil you can use. We use Scotch-Brite pads like you use in your kitchen quite a bit. They're wonderful. Or steel wool.
Steel wool leaves residue more than the Scotch-Brite.
No soap in it. It'll be just steel wool.
Yeah, don't use Brillo.
And the problem is that we gardeners use things that get wet, and then steel wool rusts. You need some kind of rag.
Good rags.
Maybe a small screwdriver. What's called a pocket honing stone. We'll show you that. And you might need a file or two. And the oil for a honing stone is called honing oil. And for wood handles, if you've got wood handles, you're going to need some linseed oil. And you always need elbow grease.
And bandages.
Well, that's a question mark, Steve. We're not
And
supposed to tell them
bandages.
they're going to need bandages. Do be careful. When you sharpen things, you're going to end up cutting yourself. It happens to me every time. I sharpen my pruners, and I walk out there, and I miss something, and I get my finger instead. Sometimes even through the glove. So there is honing oil, the Norton honing oil, super predator oil for things really stuck, the Scotch-Brite pad, steel wool, the rag, some WD-40, and the rectangular gray object is a pocket stone, a pocket honing stone. And of course, you're going to need pruners and other hand tools that you're going to work on this way. So we're going to work on a pair of pruners. This is the pair of pruners that we decided to work on. It's an older pair of Felcos. They're really dirty. Dirty is what comes first. So what we're going to do in dealing with these plants is first we're going to clean it, and then we're going to sharpen it and oil it, and then we'll move from there. But first we've got to clean the blade, the spring mechanism, and then we'll sharpen the outer edge of the blade.
The outer edge.
So we'll show you doing this first. Here's WD-40. It's an old pump spray bottle, and we're putting it on the, I think that's me. I think we're in a hotel room in Iowa here. Steve's taking
That is
pictures.
Janet. I'm taking pictures.
Yeah.
She's doing the work.
So
That's
I'm putting oil
the way we
on
like
there.
it.
The oil is a solvent. And WD-40 works. I've been told by some people there are some other oils, but if you've got WD-40 at home, use it. Putting it all over the blade, using the rag underneath to make sure I don't make up too much of a mess in this Best Western or wherever we were. And then with it oily, when the surface is oily, and it makes a huge difference to have it oily, use the Scotch-Brite pad or the steel wool.
And really got to rub it. You're really working. If your hands are strong, you're lucky.
I don't know if they even call it elbow grease anymore, but I think of my dad every time we talk about elbow grease. And however much oil you need to use, add more oil. Put it on, scrub it. Do you see it's coming cleaner? What you're taking off is sap that your blade has run across so many times that it's turned it into varnish.
And sap comes even cutting down herbaceous. It's not
Right, you get
just
sap
it's not
from
just from
plants.
woody
And the more sap there is on that blade,
and rust.
the less that those blades meet and the more friction that puts on your hand. It tears the branches, it makes it harder for you to work. Keep your pruners cleaner. Here, these my Fiskars, and we keep them clean. I generally clean them once a day. You can see that line where the blade, when you squeeze hard on the handles, has come to the point where it's pushing the sap to one place. That's where that's coming from, the sap. Whoa. If it's really hardened on there and you haven't done this for a while, you might want to use some turpentine on
Or
it.
some kind of other solvent.
Yeah, because it is sap. And you work at it, and you work at it, and you work at it, and you work at it some more. And Steve takes 400 pictures because it's taking me forever. And you want all the surfaces to be clean because that dirt, anything that's on there tends to attract moisture, and moisture is death to metal. So you want to clean, instead of putting oil on the jaw too, the part that the blade goes past, because the sap is built up there too. You can do it. This is like cleaning those pots and pans that you think, I should have gotten that off. The more you leave it on, the more it gets on there. You don't want to sharpen it when it's dirty, and certainly not when it's rusty, because the dirt has sand in it. It'll scratch the blade, and little bits of rust get dragged out onto the blade from one place to another, and they seed more rust. So you want to get it clean before you sharpen. So keep working at it. Remember, these were really dirty. You might find that this is going to happen to you. So now the inside edge of the blade is clean. Flipped it over and we're cleaning the outside edge. The outside edge is the edge that when the pruners are closed is on the outside. The inside edge is the side that passes by the other blade. Same thing. Oil it, scour it. Oil it, scour it. Clean that stuff off of there. Ugh. And the oil
softens it.
Yeah, it softens it. But if you want to get it out of the little crevices, this is where the screwdriver might help you out. What you do is you use the screwdriver to press your tip into those small spaces.
Now, many pruners you can take
coming
apart.
up. Yeah, coming up.
Sorry.
So look, those are the same ones we started with. And at one point we used to know how long it took us to do this. They were pretty dirty, and they're not so dirty now.
We were in a hurry too because our talk was coming up.
Yeah. Another thing that you want to do is you want to, if your spring is something you can take out, or around the spring crud gets built up, that spring is very important. It makes your pruners open back up without you having to put pressure on it. Clean the spring if the spring is cleanable, and on most of them it is.
It does make a difference.
Oil, scrub, wipe. Sometimes you need a little brush to get it on there. All of that gunk is there. It's creating drag on your muscles. So get all that gunk out of there.
And if you're thinking, boy, how could that little put drag? But when you're squeezing those pruners hundreds of times a day, that little bit adds up.
Tiny bits add up a lot in the blade to get into those spaces. So I know you put those down and you're cutting roots with them. You're jamming them into the dirt. We all do it. You got a sharp tool, you use it for sharp things. Okay, before we go on to the sharpening, now we've got them clean, what questions have you got?
Do you ever put your pruners tools into soak in turpentine or some kind of chemical?
We do not, Stacy, put our tools into soak, mostly because we don't let them get that bad usually. But we had a wonderful machete sickle that one of our clients found in an antique store, and we spent the entire winter working on that, soaking it, cleaning it, soaking it, cleaning it. We even used navel jelly on it, but we don't generally have to do that to them. And we are going to be sharpening spades too.
Take that up and see if anybody's raised their hand.
Um,
We can't see.
I'm going to go to the top of my participant screen, see if there's any raised hands. I don't see any raised hands.
No.
People want us to go ahead. Let's go ahead.
How often are you cleaning your tools?
How
To that
often are we
extent.
cleaning your tools? To that extent? Well, we try not to let them get that dirty. So we don't have to clean them that hard. We try to clean them every day when we come home. But I'll tell you what, last fall and this winter, I've just done a terrible job. I've come home and said, I'm too tired to do it. And then it's a job. But we try to clean them up every day.
After they've been cleaned.
You have to read it out loud, Steve.
After they've been cleaned at the beginning of the season, someone suggests putting tools at the end of the day in oil-soaked sand just overnight during.
I've heard that
Right.
before. You take a bucket of sand and you put some oil in it, and then you shove your spade and your fork into the sand so that it stays oily rather than wet. My concern with that is you now got a bucket of contaminated sand. And if
What
you
are you gonna
wiped
do
it
with
off and you leave them in a dry place, they're okay without that. So we generally,
We spray them down with WD-40 if at night, if
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
concerned
just-
about that.
just spray oil on them. Michelle is saying that if tools have been let go too long, they could sit in solvent without damaging
Oh,
the
yeah.
tool. Yeah, just don't let if it's a wooden handle, don't let the wooden handle sit in solvent.
Yeah.
Hey, Mackenzie. Hi, Devin.
Mary's.
Let's see if I can find Mary's camera. You go ahead and do questions. Steve.
Okay.
See what questions you've got.
Do you have to clean the whole surface of a shovel and spade like that?
Wow,
Or
it's
just
just,
the
you have
blade?
to,
Do you have to clean the whole surface of a shovel or spade like that, or just the blade? We clean everything. Get the rust off. It's going to do the same thing. It's dragging on the soil if it's rusty on there. So we clean the whole.
I don't mean to contradict Steve, but
I do.
I walked into the Red Wing shoe store one day getting a pair of boots for someone else, and the guy that sells us our boots said, your boots need oil. I said, I know, but I get home, I'm so tired, I just don't have time to do the boots. And he said, give me those boots. And he took my boots, muddy and filthy, and he slapped oil all over them. He said, I don't care, put oil on them. So if you don't
The
do the
oil
whole
goes through the
thing,
dirt.
you can at least clean the part you're going to sharpen.
Yes.
Okay, let's go on. Do we ever take them apart? Yes, you're going to see that in just a minute here.
When I clicked on the.
Okay, go Steve. Okay, there's your answer to your question. It normally isn't necessary to take apart your pruners. It's a big job,
And some of them you can't.
and some of them don't go back together very well. When they're as bad as the pair that we've been showing you are, then we do take them apart. So that takes a screwdriver, a little socket wrench, a number of little tools to take it apart to get underneath where all of that stuff has been, and then it lets you reach the blade.
And remember how you took them apart.
Yeah, please remember how you took them apart. Janet's terrible at that. Steve does more of our taking apart of things. When you put them back together, every pair of pruners is different on how it sets the tension, how much you tighten this. On the Felcos, there is a little tensioner teeth there that fits in, and you put it in, you close the pruners, you see if the tension is right, whether the blades meet right, and you keep playing with
And
it.
it's got to be comfortable to you. You're not squeezing hard, which if you tighten it too tight, you
You have to squeeze too hard.
so
You
it's
put it in,
personal.
put it in place and tighten it down more or less tight. Okay, now you're ready to sharpen. And you can sharpen them when they're apart because then it's easier to get to the blade, but we don't usually do that.
We're used to sharpening them together.
So we're wiping them down. They were dirty, now they're not dirty. That's the inside of the blade, the part that crosses the other blade on a bypass. You do not want to ever sharpen it. Do not sharpen inside the blade. If you sharpen inside the blade, you're actually removing metal, and that means there's going to be a gap between your two surfaces, and you're not going to be able to cut.
It won't be smooth.
I have seen professional sharpening services sharpen the inside and ruin people's tools. Do not sharpen the inside. So just like the Anvil Pruner will mangle a branch, so will pruners that don't bypass pruners that don't meet. They'll mangle, like you see here. And then the branch is just more subject to, it has to take longer to compartmentalize the damage.
Mhm.
So you're going to sharpen only the beveled edge, the outside edge.
The edge has a curve to bevel.
See, inner is the part that crosses, outer is the part that when it is closed is on the outside. And there's a bevel there. When it's dirty, you could see the bevel pretty well on these. And that's what you're going to sharpen, is that bevel.
Just the shiny.
And if you look at it, look at all the nicks on it and the dull spots. Every one of those is causing you to have to press harder and is scraping on the other blade and making it harder to cut. So you're going to sharpen that. And that's why we want you to get a pocket stone. Not a great big kitchen stone, but a pocket stone you can hold in your fingers and that will fit all the way down on the blade. You put a little bit of oil on the stone. These are available at, generally you have to go to the independent, like Ace Hardware, that do it
Aces or
best.
Great Lakes. Sometimes a Home Depot might get some in,
But
but
mostly they carry these
they
big
don't
old
have 'em.
monsters. Or you can order
the
them
little
online.
guys.
We were getting them for $6 this year, so they may have gone up. So you put some honing oil. It's a thinner oil, much thinner oil. You put it on the stone. It soaks in. And what it does is it makes a film on the stone so that as you're sharpening, little bits of metal float away and don't end up abrading your blade. And then you stroke the blade along the beveled edge. You take the stone, stroke one way, base to tip. We aim for 50 strokes. And then we check whether it's sharp enough. So we put that honing stone all the way down on the inside there where it meets the other blade, and then stroke outward all the way to the tip. Stroke from inside to outside. Do you want to do that?
No, I just was, sorry.
I'm working on the blade, the top blade. I'm not doing anything to that jaw down below.
All she's doing is
50
taking,
strokes.
that was the inside you were showing taking off. See, that's the inside edge. You're showing taking off burrs, not sharpening.
Hang on, Steve, because that's the outside edge. See, there's the outside, and that line you get there, that's from the honing stone, plus the material you're taking off of the blade. You're going to wipe that off when you get done. And then you're going to take burrs on the jaw, not on the inside of the jaw, just the top part, the part up there, there. This top part, not the inside part where the blade crosses. But if you have burrs up on this top part of the jaw, up here, they can scrape your blade as it comes by. So I'm just making sure there's no burrs there. So here's what it looks like now. There's what it did look like. Look close. So that smooth cutting edge versus see all the nicks in that? And that's just from cutting branches. Is the stone flat against the blade or at an angle, someone asks?
You go at the angle of the bevel. The bevel is like, it's not going flat across the blade. You can
We're holding
see.
it at an angle, but I've told people for years, and we've been doing this for 40 years, don't get hung up about exactly what the angle is. You'll find some pruners that people say you have to use our pruning equipment, our sharpening equipment, because it has to be exactly the right angle. Screw all that. As you hone, you
learn it too.
You're taking metal off. You're changing the bevel every time you cut. So we went from all those little nicks to a smooth edge. That's the same pruning blade, just with 50 strokes of a honing stone on it after it was cleaned.
You could also buy new blades for some of them too.
Yeah. Okay, so you have these same notes written on the last 2 pages of the handout that you could download, that you did download already, or you can download. There'll be a reminder of what link to use to get it on the survey that we'll send to you when you're done today. So back to our standard kit, folding saw. So you do not kill yourself while you're working. You want a saw that you can press that black triangular section.
And it collapses the blade.
It folds the blade right into the handle. No one hurts themselves. And you want a curved blade. See the curve?
Both blades have a slight curve to them.
We are cutting round wood. We are not cutting flat wood. We need a curved blade. The flatter, see the
The red
handle one there, it's more of a flat blade. The handle gives it a bit of a curve, but it's a flat blade. Those aren't going to work as well for you. We use the Corona, the ones you saw just a minute ago, and those you can get at A.M. Leonard and some other places. Those are usable, but not great.
The blade on the Falcos are just as sharp as the Corona.
It's
maybe sharper, but the blade just doesn't work as good for pruning.
And it's thinner metal. You tend to break the tip off.
It bends.
And without those first couple of teeth, it's amazing how less well the saw works.
Another thing is look at the texture of the teeth of the saw. See how fine the texture of the top one. It's not going to cut as fast. It may be a smoother cut, but it won't cut as fast.
The wider spaced teeth are going to make a rougher, faster cut. More teeth per inch means you're going to get a smoother, finer cut, but you're going to have to draw the saw more times. You might want to. I carry around a metal tine lawn rake, a rake that I can use for leaves or for cleaning up in a garden. The one that I really like is this one. It's the same one that's on the right here. It has a latch that you can expand it to be a full-size rake or keep it smaller. I love them. They're not very expensive.
They work great in gardens.
I was crushed one year when one of my best friends, who's an excellent gardener, said, that's just a piece of junk. But I heard her 2 years ago say, man, that's a great rake.
They are relatively inexpensive, and they do break, especially the part of the hinge to lock it.
That's what goes.
Down, but
that's what goes.
And the handles are thin.
16,
so,
yeah, 16
bucks.
bucks.
You know you got to get a new one every couple of years.
You need a bucket for everything. And do not put around the bucket an apron with pockets in it. If you put an apron with pockets on your bucket, then you can't dump it out. You can't put dirt into it very easily. It just, if you want to carry tools, put them in the bucket until you get someplace, and then you can put them somewhere.
Or carry a different two buckets.
But you want a bucket to carry water, to carry weeds. You want it to sit on and turned upside down. You want it to push yourself up off the ground.
You could stand on it. You could carry water in it. You could carry mulch in it. You can.
Yeah. And whatever kind of bucket works for you,
different gardeners like different tools.
I've seen these, and I they're fine. They're big, but I can't put my hand on the edge of this bucket thing. It's not firm enough for me to push myself
help you stand up.
And I've been standing up with a bucket for quite a few years now. You need a wheelbarrow. We use the larger wheelbarrow, and we use a fiberglass wheelbarrow. We used to, and I think we still have someplace a metal one, kind of a concrete wheelbarrow. They're very heavy and not necessary for most of what we're doing. These fiberglass or composite bodies are very good. Janet breaks them all the time, but that's from dropping 80-pound rocks into them.
Yes.
But you want to have something that has a deep enough draw that you can carry things without them falling out. I didn't think I liked these handles when they first came out. It took some getting used to, but they are very nice, better for holding on your hands.
It turns out, yes. It took us about 1.5 years to get used to them.
Yeah. The wooden handles that just end in a stick really do put more pressure on your hands, and you don't want pressure in one line.
And when you're lifting a heavy weight, you just don't have enough.
Which is what you're doing. This is our very first wheelbarrow, Steve's.
Our first wheelbarrow. That's
right. We put it out in the trash, and Phyllis said, would you mind if I took your wheelbarrow? And 20 years later, she was still using it. What I want to point out about that wheelbarrow, besides how low rise it is and how far down you have to reach to grab it, is that it's got a hard tire. You don't want a hard tire. You want an air tire.
It makes it roll so much easier. It bounces over things instead of banging into them. The plastic bangs into them, which sends shocks all the way up into your hands.
Yeah.
And you feel it into your arms, too.
Yeah. And I do see some questions on the chat. Please try to ignore those, you guys. We'll get back to them when we get to our next question session. Besides the fact that this is low rise, that air tire is important. And whatever wheels work for you, good, but try other people's wheels. You can see a little carry cart there. There's my wheelbarrow that I'm wheelbarrowing along as we take all our volunteers head back. Whenever you can put them in wheels, put them in wheels. Now there are double wheelbarrows, and they are steadier. I dumped a wheelbarrow full of soil over at Shelley's house just recently because it can get away from you, and that doesn't happen so much with a double wheel. But you can't do that.
But you can't manipulate. You can't maneuver. You're also, when you're working in a garden, sometimes you're only working on a path 18 inches wide, and those wheels are almost 18 inches or more apart. So
so
for heavy weights and that, yes, but not unnecessary.
Try someone else's first, and when it gets to the point where you need more stability, get yourself a golf cart.
Get
what
a cart.
That really loved.
Yeah, she loved her. Yeah.
Or Ginger's. See Ginger over there?
Yeah,
and that's what her garden is looking like right now. Ginger's in South Lyon. And she has hundreds of thousands of bulbs she's planted.
Daffodils.
And they're all just ginger. It's just ginger. One woman's garden. You need a small tarp. It's amazing what you can do with a tarp. To throw your weeds on, to put stones on and drag them around, to put plants on and drag them around. I carry around a little hand broom. Whoops. A little red one. The one behind it I also carry. Can you tell?
They get worn out.
They get some use. What we call a flexible scoop.
That one on the right's not flexible. It's hard plastic.
But the one on the left is a bleach bottle. We cut the bottom off and then we cut up toward the handle. What we get then is a scoop that we can spread fertilizer in. We can use it as a watering tool, but also you can push it, you can lean on it on the ground and it'll flatten out and be a little dustpan for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a very nice tool. Bleach bottles. So back to questions here. So if you've got a question and want to raise your hand, we can talk through questions, or there are some that are already up here. Steve, you can read them.
How do you know when a tool no longer can be sharpened and needs to be replaced?
Well, there's a couple of different ways about sharpening. If it's got such deep nicks in it, when it's got such deep nicks in it that you cannot smooth them out without losing a lot of metal, you probably need a new tool. Sometimes tools get so worn by somebody over sharpening them, particularly with a grinder, that they take the temper off the metal and it keeps bending every time you use it. That would be a time to do it. On saws, and yes, you can sharpen saws, Nancy, you need a little triangular.
You need the right kind of file.
It's a little triangular file, but you sharpen each tooth. The way we showed you doing the honing stone, each tooth. You don't have to do it 50 times, but you have to do every tooth. You have to smooth that tooth out. And saws, you can only do a few times before you're not going to have enough metal left there for it to saw properly. And you'll know because you sharpened the saw, you oiled it, and it just doesn't pull the way that it did.
You can tell this tool is not responding the same. For us, the sharpening of the saw, the meticulousness of it, it's often worth just having a couple just buying another one.
Buy another $20 saw.
I mean, they're not super expensive, the ones we use.
Julie asked whether when we say air tire, do we mean one that goes flat occasionally? Yeah, it certainly does for us. But an air tire is a tire just like on your cars and bikes. It's full of air. It's got a valve stem. Sometimes, despite being told we shouldn't do it, we fix a flat in it if we're out someplace. Do we ever use a grinder? Yes. On spades, Steve would not let me demonstrate that for pictures, and we're going to get into sharpening spades here just before we get done. Mostly because he says we don't need to do that. There's sparks flying all over the place. But yes, you can use a grinder. Be careful if you use a grinder. Do not overgrind. Never hold a piece of metal against a grinder until it gets hot. You're going to take the temper off the metal, and you'll never be able to get it back again. Gretchen is saying that a plastic dirt sled with a rope to pull. So she's sledging things around the yard. Yeah, put large pots on it. Yep, this is it. We are the low-tech, high-end gardeners. We figure these things out.
We do whatever.
And yes, of course it works best sliding things over grass. Okay. A bench grinder. Yes, the grinder we're talking about is a bench grinder. We'll show you.
Some people have hand grinders.
Sure, yeah, and some people still have foot treadle ones. I have seen one in a garage that I covet muchly.
I have found that strong women wives are handy tools too.
Yeah. We're going to keep going. If you think of questions, we've got another question session coming up. Hello there, Scarlet Tanager. We saw an indigo bunting this week. They're back.
Oh, I saw bluebirds.
Bluebirds are back. Yes, Shelley says one's been checking out the bluebird house at her place. Okay, another thing that goes with me all the time, maybe it doesn't go with you and it can stay in the garage, but it goes with me because I'm often someplace else, is my kit to sharpen with. And this is a couple kits ago. I keep wearing them out, but I have something that I can close around a honing stone and oil, a plastic scraper, a scrubby, and some WD-40.
That's her current one.
That's my current one. Look, it's a nice new little ditty bag. Okay, every day you need a mower. Boo. We went 20 years without having to mow lawn, and now we're mowing lawn.
The bag is optional. I do not bag the grass, mulch it into the grass. Those blades, just have 2 blades, sharpen one, keep them sharp. They mow great.
The blades, you can sharpen your blades yourself. We'll show you how to sharpen a spade. It's the same as sharpening that mower blade.
It's the same technique.
Buy an extra blade when you buy your mower so that you can always keep changing it. Your grass doesn't like to get ripped out by the roots. And
just remember to disconnect the spark plug before you take whether it's turned off or not. If it's still spark, you turn that, it could fire.
Something to edge with. Steve, take it from here. He is the edger master.
Yeah, this is the one most people buy is that type of weed whip. See the curve on the shaft. It's not as powerful. If you are doing just around your house, that's one thing. If you're doing some heavy weed whipping or continuous weed whipping, the inline weed whip is much stronger, works a lot better. If you're working around rocks, stumps, trees, heavy grass.
Wear glasses or goggles.
Don't wear your boots, long pants.
Steve looks like he's out for combat.
And cover your arms. Even with the guard that's right there, that stuff flies around. I thought, I'll take that guard off. Well, that guard also was cutting the string on this particular model. So when I took the guard off, the string kept going out and out and out. So, not a good idea.
Okay, everybody knows you need a hose. Our favorite hose is this one. It's called the 0G hose. They are wonderful. They're lightweight, they don't kink, they last a long time. However, if you get a 0G, and 0G is the brand name, see 0G, do not attach it directly to your spigot because
leave it.
Something's about the metal that it's made out of, it will weld itself to your spigot. Put one of those brass attachments or a plastic attachment between it and the spigot. So
we're going to have to get a plumber to come and take that.
But they are incredible hoses, 0G. It's worth the money. You need a watering can. There's all kinds of ways to water. Bottles stuck in pots, gators, sprinklers that you set up to just misters, irrigation, in-ground irrigation systems. The most important sprinklers are the watering bucket and you with a hose shower end on your hose.
Yeah, you're more accurate that way, much more accurate.
And what you want to do is water just where it's needed. Loppers are for taking things that are bigger than your hand pruners can take and maybe not quite big enough that you have to go at them with a saw. And there are lots of different kinds of loppers, just like hand pruners. There's bypass and there's anvil. If you're cutting a live plant, use bypass cutters.
Yeah.
So anvil on the right, the Fiskars, we call those our Destructo pruners. They're wonderful.
And those little handles are almost as powerful as those longer handles. Those handles are half the length of those other ones because of the gears.
But if I'm cutting live wood with loppers, I'm going to cut with the long-handled bypass blade. But I don't use loppers that much. I go from hand pruners to things up to the size of my finger to saw.
Yep. We found the saw it makes a better cut than the lopper. The lopper often does not cut as smooth.
We forgot to put out string. Carry some string or some bungees. There's always reason for string. This time of year, tie up your stuff before you cut it. It's a lot easier to pick it up afterwards. A pole pruner. I would not be able to survive without my pole pruner.
And this model is the best pole pruner
This is the
ever
one
made.
that you want. I do not know why someone didn't come up with this before. This is a blade. This is a pruner that you pull on the handle or the cord, and a bypass closes on the top. It doesn't hook.
It's a bypass.
It doesn't hook over the top of a branch and get stuck.
It has a adjustable head.
And it can extend.
It extends to 12 feet.
So someplace here, there we are. It has a latch up here that I can unlatch and push that out, and it'll be 12 feet long.
There's still a smaller model available at Home Depots.
That doesn't
The only place
telescope.
we found this so far is either Fiskars' own site or Amazon.
Yeah. But this is a wonderful, wonderful pole
It's-
pruner. Throw the saw
Saws
away. Do not use a pole saw.
You have no control. I don't care who you are.
If you're using a pole power saw,
That's
be careful.
Careful.
Those guys are heavy and hard to hang on to.
it.
The reason you don't use a pole saw is you cannot cut properly to make the branch fall without tearing. Your first cut is always on the underside of a branch. Your second cut is above there, and then the branch breaks at your first cut without tearing into the cambium.
And that way you're getting the weight off too.
Cut
before
one
you cut.
under, cut two a little further out above, then the branch breaks off there, then cut three, you take the stub off. You can't make that number one cut with a pole saw.
The pole pruner was a Fiskars.
Yeah, Fiskars. So if you see on top, there's a Japanese maple. I'm taking a large branch off. I've made the number one cut underneath. As I make the number two cut, the branch splits back to the number one cut and leaves that little notched end. Now I can cut it off, but it doesn't rip down and damage the wood. Can't do that with a pole saw. A digging shovel is for when you got to dig holes. I always gave Steve the digging. I said, he dug such holes. I said, you dug such nice holes. Was because he was using a digging shovel where you don't have to take quite so much soil out to scoop it out. Garden rakes are for, you can rake leaves with this. You got to clear them out of the teeth a lot more often. But what a garden rake is for strength. It's for moving rocks, soil, and it's for pushing as well as pulling. You can't push a lawn rake, but you can push this rake. This is called a bow rake when it has what looks like a bow, like bow and arrow. That gives the rake a lot more springiness. You might not see it, but you get a lot more action out of your rake when it's a bow rake than when it's a flat garden rake. So a bow rake is generally better for keeping your muscles from putting too much strain into it. So bow rake, red on the left, middle one is a straight garden rake, and the other we'll get to later is a landscape rake. Scoop shovels, long handle scoop shovels.
Yeah, I like the far one on the left for lightweight material.
Oops, sorry, Steve. I didn't mean to do that. Whoa, sorry.
Lightweight material, that aluminum blade, flat blade, it really is a nice one. For heavier material, use the coal shovel. That one.
That's just,
that takes a good amount of sand and lifts it. You try to fill that big scoop with sand, no thank you.
yeah.
Or pea pebble.
This one's getting too much to sharpen. See this edge?
Yeah.
It's worn itself down to where I'm going to have to take the bevel, take the turn of
If we
the
sharpen.
edge all the way up. I use the plastic scoops on surfaces that might scratch, composite driveways, decks. Boardwalks.
And there are smaller scoop shovels with
Long handle gives you more
leverage.
leverage. And the scoop is turned up so that it'll hold things for you. Here's our buddies at the Detroit Zoo helping load up with a scoop shovel. A mulch fork, it was at the zoo that I first used the mulch fork. On the left with the blue tines is our long mulch fork for sticking into the mulch pile and loading up. I think it was Linda who brought to the zoo her mulch fork one time, and I said, oh, got to have one of those. Thin tines that go into the mulch easily. It gives you a big handful of mulch at a time into your wheelbarrow.
And that particular tool is very heavy. That's iron, that's not aluminum. The one on the right. It's heavier than you would expect.
Yeah. Some of them are lighter. Hold them first, make sure it's okay for you. David Green is talking about the branch collar. We'll have to do that on pruning techniques. Thanks, David. We'll get that in a little while. We also use a push broom. I use it a lot.
We use it a lot. We found one
Look at
that
our
worked.
push broom.
I mean, this was the best bristle. It worked on everything, on patios, on
I hate getting a new push broom because they're either too heavy in the head,
that
or
one's heavy.
or the bristles are too soft or too hard.
Too
they
stiff.
skitter. Yeah. You'll find me when I need a new broom, which we're into right now. You'll find me in the aisle at the store, at the hardware store.
Because of course we can't find the model that you like.
No, they never have the same one twice. A drain spade. Some people call it a poaching spade. Long, narrow spade. It's the size to do that trench. I dug 100 feet of trench. I don't want to move any more extra soil than I have to. I want a drain spade.
Some people use them to dig post holes.
Yeah.
That's another type of
Well,
new spade.
my sister got this for me because some of our friends like it a lot. It's called the Root Slayer. I'm afraid to use it. I haven't done anything with it yet, but it's supposed to cut through a lot readily. It gives me that same kind of look as a drill.
You can use power tools to do some holes if you find.
Yeah. Head shears. I don't shear a lot, but when I do, I love my ARS shears.
Spend the money, get the good shears.
We give you the supplier for this at the end of the day. These are over $100, the long red-handled ones. They are spectacular, but they are shears. They're meant to cut soft, one-year wood, not big branches.
Don't use it on ornamental grasses. I
Yes,
almost got destroyed with that.
I just about let Steve go for using them there. You need a spray bottle. And thank you, Mark. The one on the right, the professional sprayer that Home Depot sells, for whatever reason, does not clog when you put the blood products in.
The deer repellent, pest repellent. Every one of those, every other ones we've tried clogged except for that one.
Yeah.
Even the spray. I'm pointing at the screen.
He's pointing
my
at
hand.
even the pump sprayer.
Pump sprayers.
Yeah. But you're always going to need a sprayer. Maybe you have a hose end sprayer. We do very little spraying of any kind of asides, any kind of pesticides, herbicides.
Yes.
We might spray
if you
soap
do,
on
label
things.
that bottle and keep it separate.
Yeah. Mostly I use this one to spray food coloring and water on snow art.
Sculptures.
Yeah.
Yes.
A utility knife for dividing plants or for freeing up roots. You get a hooked blade.
That's
They're called carpet knife.
And then there's the ramble blades.
And there's the ramble blade. This is sharp on both sides,
That
straight
is,
side and
that
small
is
side.
well worth having.
Yeah, it's that's at Home Depot. It's a Milwaukee blade. You need some heavy duty scissors. This is not the snips I meant, not tin snips.
I know.
Scissors. Often scissors at this time of year are a lot easier for cutting some of the smaller plants down. Okay, we're coming up to questions here.
Yeah.
Both cutters. These have now become one of our occasional, maybe
Necessary
even frequent
too.
use to cut off the baskets that we keep finding were planted with the trees and shrubs. Sometimes we use a long-handled hoe. I'm particularly fond of the little finger hoe. A
Honey hoe.
A honey hoe, yeah. This one, Steve, unfair. That's not dirt. That's concrete on there. I use that to mix concrete. This is a winged hoe.
It looks like dirt.
And the one over here is a scuffle hoe because you can push it back and forth. It moves back and forth. It's a scuffle hoe. It's a personal, like a weeder thing. So the honey hoe or the pointed winged blade, whatever works for you. Hand claw, a lot of people like to use. I mostly don't use claws.
No.
Leaf rake.
Different from the metal rakes we showed you.
Yeah, tend to be lighter weight.
Plastic.
Not good in the garden because you can't make them smaller to get between plants and things tangle in them. This is the kids' rake, Steve.
Yeah.
That's the grandkids' rake.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to questions here.
Comment on watering. I now use, sorry, it just moved
I
on.
now use hoses for potable water, especially on veggies and herbs. I don't put rain barrel water on veggies either, based on what might come off the roof. I guess you probably would want to worry about that, but what comes off of your roof is probably ubiquitous anymore. Okay, I'm going to go back a little bit here.
No, that was
There it is. Okay, we use Fiskars.
Yeah.
Okay, David, who is a arborist, says, please emphasize the retention of the branch collar in your presentation of pruning techniques. The branch collar is that place where the cambium and bark of the branch meet the cambium and bark of the, we'd have to go back one way, Steve. Cambium and bark of the trunk. It tends to form a thickened area, and you do not cut that off. It leaves a little bump like a turtleneck when you take off, and people think they're leaving a stub. You are not leaving a stub. You're leaving the collar.
That then grows around the
Tell you
wound.
what, go to gardenataz.com or .org and put in search branch bark collar or collar. And you're going to find at least 3 articles and pictures of that, including the diagrams that I just showed you. Where does the professional bottle sprayer come from again? Thank you, Mark. It comes from Home Depot.
Yep.
And it's not very expensive. Isn't dirt like weeds? If you don't want it there, it's dirt. Correct. It's dirt if it's what gets in the house, or you don't want it. It's soil otherwise. What's the difference between a mulch fork and a digging fork? A mulch fork is generally more of a pitching fork. There may be a bit of a curve to the tine. There'll be thinner tines.
Janet was also called that in our images. We showed the one narrower one with the blue tines that look like the digging fork. It's just got they've got the longer handle. That one she was using for mulch. It wouldn't use it for digging with that longer handle. It's not comfortable.
Well, no, you can use a long handled fork to dig with, but you're not going to use little tiny skinny tines to dig with. You'll bend the tines.
Yes.
Mulch fork has generally got thinner tines, just like a pitchfork has thinner tines. Okay.
There's a new message.
Let's see what we got here. Is the rectangular spade the best tool to use in edging your landscape? Is it the best tool? It is for me, because I don't want to go back and get a different tool, and because it's a longer blade than an edger is. I am generally edging lawn that is not fine golf course turf. It's utility turf. It's got various things mixed into it, including quackgrass. So my edge has to be cut deeper than just that little 3-inch edge that an edger is going to cut. So for me, it's the best one, but it's going to be different for everybody about what's best. Julie asked, what was the comment about using rain barrel water? The comment was that rain that falls, runs down your roof, may be picking up residue from the tiles, which may or may not be made from asphalt. And some of that asphalt is coated with stamp sand now, which might have metals in it. It's a difficult thing to know exactly where your water comes from and what's going on with it. Without getting it tested separately.
Michelle raised her hand.
Oh, all right. We have someone who can get a voice other than our own. Michelle, go. What's up?
I have been using the spade and digging an edge, and you know, it takes a big clunk of dirt out, and I've been shaking the dirt off. And is it okay to leave little tiny roots of the weeds that I'm pulling out, which could be creeping Charlie grass or that stuff with the little tiny white flowers?
If you are
chickweed.
Well, chickweed with little tiny white flowers, and also bittercress has little tiny white flowers this time of year. It is okay to leave little tiny roots on plants that don't grow by runner roots, and the ones that you named, the chickweed, the creeping Charlie, they're running on stems that laid on the ground and rooted. So as long as you're taking off the stems, you're okay. Grass, some grasses grow from roots, but most of them that grow from running roots are growing from a thick white root, not little tiny roots.
Yeah, I know the difference on that thing. I've got those too.
Yeah, we have to get to go.
Those buggers.
Yeah, Steve's pointing out we better get to sharpening a spade before we go. So
because
sorry.
We were asked
that's
about
all right.
Sharpening.
Yeah, the only little tiny root I would worry about would be that if you've got sour sorrel running in the garden, because it's got a little tiny root that runs.
We will get to the edging on the slope area after we get.
Keep going. Yeah, we'll take that one later. Okay, occasional tools. Ball cart to carry heavy stuff. You can do amazing things with boulders and trees with a ball cart. And Steve, we don't need these things for regular gardeners. Those are things to pry stuff out of the ground, and come-alongs to pull heavy stuff out.
And ramps.
But you do need something to harvest in. We couldn't find our trug. A trug is a low basket with a handle that you can put produce in and not have it crush itself and carry it over your arm inside. You need things to carry inside, some kind of trug. I carry with me all the time a hammer and some kind of rod, because I'm quite often making wattle fencing that I put posts in the ground. Or yesterday I put up pea trellises, and I needed to make a starter hole. Wood chisels become a standard for me because I'm getting into root girdling, and we'll talk about that in an upcoming webinar. Chisels. An axe. Oh, I don't like swinging an axe. but we do. Here the horticulturalist was swinging an axe and pounding it through with a hammer, a mallet, to divide grasses. A pickaxe, our friend Paul swears by a pickaxe or mattock. Yeah. A tamper, if you're doing any kind of paths, it's really nice to just firm it down.
Pack it in.
You can pack it down with your feet. I sicked our grandkids on packing down soil. It was great. I said, here, I'm going to just walk back and forth. They packed it down great. A long level, if you're doing any kind of path, and if you got a long level, get one with a ruler on it. It's really very handy. Tape measures, Steve thinks we need those. I do too. This is a wonderful thing to have. Get your family to get you one. You're looking at a normal
pruning.
You're looking at a normal step ladder here, 10-foot step ladder. And the other one is an orchard ladder. See, it's a 3-legged ladder, and I can put that leg right through between branches so that I can get in the tree, not just next to the tree. That's an orchard ladder. Landscape rakes. Go.
Smooth that out mulch.
Yeah, and it's much broader than a garden rake. It takes a little more energy to do it, but it's good for getting a new lawn ready or smoothing out mulch. I love it. Flat bastard file. I just like knowing.
That's what we use to sharpen.
Oops, I wasn't supposed to go backwards. That was my hand doing that. This is what we're going to use to sharpen a spade. A seed spreader. You know about those from Steve's lawn videos. A blower. Don't blow your plants. Do not blow plants. They're already dry in the fall and we don't want them dry. But they're great for blowing leaves out of rocks, cleaning gutters, cleaning off surfaces. Our son has a backpack blower.
Which was packed away perfectly, and I was not about to take it down.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
Just assume that it's a backpack blower.
If you're going to get a blower, I want one you can reverse and chop up your leaves. I don't say electric chainsaw. I say battery chainsaw. Don't get electric stuff that has a cord on it. I can't tell you how many times. I can't tell you how many times I've been working in a yard and I hear somebody going with their head shears and then go, damn, because they've just cut through their cord. Get one that's battery operated. There's a file on this one. So just like can you sharpen a saw, it's a round file of the size that fits right between each. There's a tooth there and a tooth there and a tooth there and a tooth there, and you sharpen every single one of those. Head shears, if you got a big long hedge to do, battery powered head shears are good to have. Tillers are nice.
We don't use them.
We rent them if we need one. We're mixing in compost here. Tillers are to till in other things, like here they're tilling calcium, lime in at Toledo Botanic Garden. If you're going to get a chipper, this was our second chipper. Boy, it was great. Get one that you can put the hopper down and rake right into it, because this first one that we had that you had to pick everything up and put it in, it was a pain in the
butt. But it chipped a lot.
It chipped great. It chipped great. And here's the grinder that I was talking about. So there's a wheel here. One is a finer and one is a rougher grind, like finer sandpaper and rougher sandpaper. They go around and you hold the spade against it.
Remember when you're using those goggles the same with the weed whips, and probably with the chainsaw.
When you decide what you want, this is why we pick tools when we can hold them in our hand. You want them to feel balanced. The one on my right is the one that I love, and its balance point is further back. It doesn't drag my hand down as much as the DeWitt one does. The metal is also different.
There are a lot of good children tools.
Yeah, Clarington Forge that will point you at.
Smaller tools.
It's a small tool, and
never know when we're going to need smaller.
We got our same tools in small size for our kids, and now we didn't give them to our kids when they grew up, even though they wanted them. We kept them. What kind of metal is it? On the left here, we've got stainless steel.
Heavy,
it's heavy,
extra weight. Not worth it.
You don't need
it's like a designer.
But metal does make a difference in the weeders. So in this weeder here, if you look close, see the scoring on the metal? It's not a well-finished piece of metal. That metal is going to always pick up more dirt and get more stuff caked on it than this smoother one is.
Yeah.
See, it was milled wrong. How they're joined, you think of it, all of your digging tools are levers, and you need strength there. This is in the ground. You're leaning back on this. Here's what takes all of the pressure and the weight. So if you've got a join like this,
Where
you got a weak point.
it just goes right into the wood. It's going to snap.
This is our Clarington forged fork. This is Steve's. Mine is the same way. It's all one piece of metal forged and not welded and not fit with a socket, but with strength so that it can hold together. Same thing with the joinery on handles here. The one that I love so much, the blade, the rod is stuck straight into wood and seated and has never come loose, whereas this little socket
Comes
comes
loose and
loose.
vibrates. There's difference in handles
Right.
on the spades, forks.
Yeah. Put them in your hands and see, but you want joinery that they put the wood in because it's more comfortable, but it doesn't hold as well and it can pinch fingers as it wears out, whereas wood on wood doesn't do that quite so much. This one is joined right at the handle, and that's another weak point when you
It's going to
bend on
snap. Again.
handles are always different. How wide is it? Does it fit your hand well?
How, you know, the when you're grabbing it.
These T handles are fine, except that they don't give you much to the side.
There's not enough room, and
So
the
you're
way they're attached.
Yeah, you're putting a lot of pressure on just a couple of fingers when you hold these kinds of things. Composite handles are the resins and plastics, and
Again, heavy.
They're heavy. They're heavy. Think about wheels. There's my dad, wheeling my brother and sister. Wheels, even old iron wheels, were better than nothing. Get grips that are padded if you can, because padding is worth it. That's what's great about these
It
rubber
absorbs
grips.
the shock.
Yep. So these radius handles are great. I'm not keen on the radius fork. They keep breaking, but the handles
The
are very
handles are
comfortable.
good, but not the food.
And look for shock absorbers.
On your loppers, on your shears.
Shears. If you don't have these shock absorbers here, every time you open and close those shears, the shock of your opening and closing goes right to your elbows. And while you're thinking about padding, your knees.
Pad your knees.
We wear block ladder pants, B-L-A-K-L-A-D-E-R. B-L-A-K-L-A-D-E-R. You can write me about it if you want. And when you're working, switch hands and switch feet. Do it regularly. Do it all the time. You stand differently when you use the right foot to kick
I
versus
have
the left.
a hip that gets sore now because of not switching.
Because all of this chewed up underneath my boot here, that's from hitting the shovel. You want to have that be distributed across both your feet, same as the toes being worn out. And learn to hold in neutral position. This, clasping with the thumb like this, is wrong. It's not good for your hands, is why we get carpal tunnel and other things. You want your thumb to be in neutral position as if it's just hanging from your hand. So this is putting a lot of pressure on all of those nerves going through your wrist. Don't do that. Hold this way. Thumbs in line with that first finger, not curved around. Wrong, right. And make sure your pruners fit your hand. These are Virginia Smith's pruners, 100 years old and still using them. She liked the Klaus pruners. They were smaller for her hand and a good piece of metal. I think Dale at Uncle Luke's feed store carries the Klaus brand, Klaus. Okay, so you want things to fit and feel good, and you want them to be safe. Like you said, we already did the glasses. So be careful of your fingers while you're sharpening. Emery paper, a brush, a big brush to clean things off, a scraper to clean off the spade, a little wire brush to clean off the spade, linseed oil for the handle. Here's other sharpeners rather than just the pocket stone. Here's the Felco's own. You got to use this kind of, well, you pay an awful lot for that little tiny stone right there. So we showed you about sharpening these. That's exactly the same as your spade, your weeder, your loppers, the tooth of the saw. So you're going to sharpen, preferably get all the dirt and rust off before.
But if you can't,
sharpen it
anyway.
And you're going to use a file going in one direction. So I want that off. I don't want to be dragging dirt and rust in, so I keep using oil on it and a brush and a scrubby to get that off, and I clean that edge. See, I haven't cleaned the whole spade, or at least I clean the edge that I'm sharpening, and I'm going to push the file, then move over and push the file, push the file, push the file, always in one direction.
Always away from the handle.
Your spades and shovels are not sharpened when you buy them. I don't know why they don't sharpen them,
Occasionally there's one that might be.
but you need a beveled edge on there. It doesn't matter which side, pick one side and bevel it. I prefer to bevel the bottom, the back side of my spade. See the bevel? Because I think I get more wear on the top of the spade from everything being on it and then being pitched off of it. And on wooden handles, you use soap and water, maybe sandpaper, and then you slather them with linseed oil. It's amazing how then they stay swelled up.
The oil is the key.
Yeah, the oil.
Clean it with sandpaper too.
Yeah, but linseed oil, a natural plant oil. These have had oil put on them, and it'll keep the blades from the sockets from falling apart so often. It'll keep them from splitting. Disinfect your tools if you've been working with anything that has any chance that it's infected with a disease of the wood. Use bleach and water. Here I'm disinfecting everything after I was working on patients with impatiens downy mildew. 10% bleach solution is what we use mostly because it's cheaper.
I think we're all learning about 10%
bleach solution. So then suppliers, there are lots of them. On our list, I forgot to put Gemplers because we do buy from Gemplers sometimes. They carry the Falcos and some others. You can find the Fiskars on a number of different sites. Generally, our favorite little power gear, small loppers, are somewhere around the $25.
We like the ones with a titanium blade. It's a gold blade. I think they're sharper.
Yeah.
They last longer.
And these are on the bottom on page 5. So A.M. Leonard has just about everything. And it's a very good company, been around for a long time. Clarington Forge is in Canada. They make our spade and fork and a lot of other tools. It's wonderful stuff, but it's lifelong stuff. You're going to pay $80, $85 for a spade, but it's going to last you your lifetime. Fiskars you can find at fiskars.com and from some other companies, and then the Ace Hardware has the pocket stones. Okay, I think we are now ready then to say you did it. You've come to tools, you've cleaned things up, you're going to go home and get your own standard kit together and clean them up before you go out today. Leave the bad ones, you can get them later or get a new one. Get rid of the worst ones.
We use them for decorations.
Yeah, you used all the stuff you should do. So, and you can go to our site to ask us questions, but we've got a few minutes. If your handles are rough, should you sand them before you oil? Anytime you got a rough handle, try to smooth it out.
I try to sand the wood every time. Just a fine sandpaper, run it up and down the wood. It just takes hand oils and dirt out and allows the penetrating of linseed oil to get in better.
Michelle asked, which side do we sharpen on the spade and shovel? Again, we tend to sharpen the underside, the side that is not holding the material when you lift up out of the hole, because we think that gets extra friction on the top side and wears out our edge more. So we usually do the other side, but it doesn't matter. Whichever side you do, just keep doing the same side.
And you can do both, but then you're wearing out the metal faster. I would just do one side.
Oh yeah, you don't need a point on it.
No.
But it does make a difference. People often say to me, boy, you must be strong. And maybe I'm strong, but I also have a sharp blade at the end of my handle on my spade. Okay. A battery operated hedge trimmer, but it tends to shred the stem tips. Then if your battery operated hedge trimmer is shredding the stem tips, then it needs to be sharpened. You might even need new blades for it. And in some cases, it's not, some of those are not the best equipment in the world. But if it's shredding, then it's not cutting clean and it's not doing your plants any good. Thank you very much, everybody. You have a great day. It's going to be a great gardening weekend.
Yes.
Enjoyed talking to you today.
Thank you.
Bye now.